And we are ready and rearing, roaring, grr. We're ready to go. It's the In the Hunt podcast. My name is Jake Mendel, and always I got Topher Cochran on the other line. And Topher, the Dolphins are 4-2. Are we officially sitting pretty?
No, because we were actually in this position last year. Now, do we believe that? Like, are we going to compare last year to this year? We don't know. But the Dolphins have been in this position before. I think we'll have to find. I think the next 3 games are pretty important in terms of how we sit.
Oh, we're one way or another we're sitting, and always you can find us sitting on iTunes, Podbean, Spotify, at MIA in the Hunt on Twitter, and Cochran108 and JMendel94. And Topher, let's talk about the 4-2 Dolphins last year for a second. Jay Cutler was out with an injury, so the Dolphins had to face maybe their favorite team in the world, and that is the Baltimore Ravens. And Matt Moore was at quarterback. And do you really remember how that game went?
I do not. I don't want to remember.
I'll say 3 numbers, and that should really give it away. 40-0, and so I guess that's 2 numbers. I meant 3 digits.
Well, I think the thing I remember is that was when Kiko Alonso knocked Joe Flacco into another planet.
And that's how we thought we'd win, but then Ryan Mallett scored 40 points on us. Or at least, half them points, something like that. And later on in the show, we'll do a little tease. We have Steve Palazzolo from Pro Football Focus. But Topher, before we get there, before we get into the nitty-gritty stats that is football, the Dolphins for the second week in a row are facing a team coming off their bye. Why is nobody talking about this?
I think no one's talking about it because all these games are on the road for that team.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing when you're on a bye week and you come and you come after the bye and you're playing at home, but no, you're traveling on the road.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I think no one's really talking about it. And to be fair, the Dolphins haven't proven much, and the teams that we're playing outside of maybe Chicago, Chicago is obviously the better team than Detroit. But they kind of were talking about the defensive line the entire time, with the Bears.
Because, yes, the Bears have a great defense, but as we saw, they scored 28 points, but Mitch Trubisky doesn't scare me whatsoever. I think maybe, would you have to agree, the Lions' offense might be, especially when you look at those 3 wide receivers, might be comparable to maybe that Bears defense?
The Lions actually, their receivers actually do scare me.
Yep.
I think if this game was in Detroit, I think it's a good loss, foregone loss. But it's at home, and so that's why I'm not too worried about it. But those wide receivers do terrify me. Not as much as the Bears defense. I thought the Bears defense was going to rip off Brock Osweiler's arm and face. But Juwan James did that. Juwan James saved Brock Osweiler's life, so we should credit him for being a hero.
Read, the tenacious tackle tandem of Juwan James and Larry Tunsil. I love that. I love that so much. And I'll let you finish. I'm going to go Kanye for a second. The thing about trying to compare the two is the Bears defense was a very bad matchup for the Dolphins. Where are those Lions wide receivers? Do we really think they kind of have advantage against probably, I'm going to say it, a top 3 secondary in the NFL?
Ooh. Is Bobby McCain going to be playing? If he's playing, then I feel good. If he's not playing, let's pray. If he's not playing, let us pray. And I'm talking about the lettuce.
We'll either be playing or praying. I get that. But yeah, I think Bobby's going to be back this week. But yeah, we saw Torrey McTyer get roasted a little bit. And Gase actually talked about Tankersley today in his press conference, and he seemed like he's getting better, but he's obviously not nearly as confident.
He's not. Don't want to play him.
Yeah.
If he's on the field, you're going to cry.
We're Dolphin fans. We're going to cry either way. Come on now.
But, I think it just comes out if Bobby McCain plays, then I feel better about it.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of it, it's I think it just comes down to, for the Dolphins, is just how the offense is going to look. I have all the confidence in the world the defense is going to show up. The Lions don't have the same explosive guys that Chicago has. You don't got to worry about Tariq Cohen.
Right.
coming out of the backfield. Like they got LeGarrette Blount and Kerryon Johnson.
Kerryon Johnson has not been bad,
he's not been bad, but he's different than Tariq Cohen.
He's definitely
Tariq Cohen was a little firecracker back there.
I like that. I like firecracker a lot. And the great thing about facing Kerryon Johnson is that they still will give snaps to LeGarrette Blount and even Theo Riddick. It's kind of the same scenario with the Dolphins, except Frank Gore actually does stuff. That's probably the best way I could explain that one.
Yeah, I think what's fascinating with Frank Gore is like he looks so good.
Yep.
In his role. You're not asking for much. You're just asking to move the chains and fall down.
Here's a question for you. Would you start him in fantasy?
I'm thinking about starting him this week as a flex option.
Okay, that's probably the peak I'd give him because you want that touchdown. If he gets you that touchdown, he's a genius because he's not going to go 15 for 101 every week. But
no,
the Lions defense does. CK Parrott on Twitter was ranting and rambling like he usually does in a good way about the Lions defense today. And he was mentioning how the Lions like to play a lot of, 6 DB sets. And you know how you beat that? You run the ball.
You just run.
Just run.
I like, I just like I think the running game, we will have a good game this week. It's, I think it's just about them getting in rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe Brock Osweiler getting the offense in rhythm and not just being chaotic with the ball. He's not a gunslinger, so you don't really got to worry about too much of him just making bad decisions. It just comes down to just crappy arm strength.
Right.
But as long as the offense gets in rhythm and plays, and they should win, and they want to run the ball. The Dolphins like running the ball. It's just they do it in an unconventional way.
Mm-hmm.
They have Nick O'Leary now, who's just, I guess, their fullback. He's filled in the Marquise Gray role, right?
100%, and that's such a unique role for the Dolphins because I guess when you're looking for that type of character, yeah, you can understand why it's not Mike Gesicki. But how about we just let Mike Gesicki line up at wide receiver or as slot receiver and just let's see what happens because here's a question for you, Topher. There's gonna be room for another player to catch balls because I'm going to go ahead and ask this over under on Devontae Parker's snap count this week, and we'll do it what he had last week. 4.
If he plays, I can care less.
Oh my God. I'm just put Gesicki over there. I mean, he's already on
Why not?
Exactly. He's already on the same pace where, Parker was one of them most when he's thrown at, he's often, intercepted the quarterback. He's been that way for since he was drafted in 2015, and Gesicki already did that as we saw in week 1. So why not just let the young guy get a chance? You know what I mean?
Yeah, because it's so frustrating, man. You just you want the guy to play, you want him to get some touches, you want him to get some love, and it's not happening.
Why don't we talk a little
it's frustrating.
You want we got some bulletin board material here. Golden Tate.
Yes.
You can't be the best receiver after the catch in just 6 weeks. Sheesh! Throwing some shade at Albert Wilson. And so we have McCain coming back, and you wrote down here, can we, what'd you say here? You want Minkah against Golden Tate?
Can he handle that?
I think he can, but give me Bob McCain there. I want Bobby McCain on Golden Tate, and I want Minkah just hitting anyone in the face that walks in here.
Just punching him.
Do the old Alex Rodriguez, just punch in the face mask.
But that's for me is the matchup. Obviously you got Kenny Galladay, who who the fantasy circles call him Babytron.
That's great.
And so that dude's actually good. He's legit, and no one's talking about him because he's on Detroit. But I have him on my fantasy roster. And I'm hoping he does not go ballistic because that guy's a big play, physical wide receiver. And I'm just hoping that playing in the Miami Sun just just destroys the entire offense and defense of Detroit.
Why not? Detroit and Chicago, both of them.
It did. The Dolphins broke Chicago. They got to go play New England next week, and they're going to go a 2-game losing streak right after a bye.
And
you know how bad that is?
And then I think they got to face the Bills and Jets right after that. I thought that was really weird. You got to face all 4 AFC East teams in 4 straight.
Got to knock them out all at once. Just get it over with.
Rip the
like a Band-Aid.
Off.
Just rip the Band-Aid off, man.
So We mentioned how the Lions are coming off their bye week, and they've been practicing in 41-degree weather. So they could game plan. Now they have time to game plan for Osweiler, yada, 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 whatever we have like up our sleeves. But you can't game plan for that Miami Heat.
No, you cannot. And I think that's the reason why like I feel so confident with the Dolphins at home is because of the weather. And it's for it's the first time have we felt like that it's the first time in a while. In the Philbin years they had up like these random 4:00 games that didn't make sense. And now we have all these 1:00 games, and we're seeing it actually take effect, and it's inflating the Dolphins' record.
I'm really excited, so hopefully we could get like confused, sweaty Matt Stafford, because I like think of like there's definitely like a Matt Stafford face, because he definitely has those games where he has one touchdown to 3 interceptions, and he just has like the face on the sideline of what's happening. But it's a whole different animal when it's that plus hey it's 101 degrees outside. So I'm kind of excited to hopefully see like a couple good Matt Stafford faces on the sideline.
Oh, give me the Matt Stafford looking at his Microsoft, was it the damn tablet under the shade with like some like athletic intern holding up a tent over Matthew Stafford to look at it, because that's what's happening now, and that cracks me up. Was when like you see like people holding over a canopy, yep, over the defense or the offense when they're off, when one's off the field.
What happened? I remember seeing these, but I don't see them because this used to be like CBS. They either go to like a commercial break and they'll show you like something on the sidelines, or like before the game they'll just show you different angles of the field. They used to have the really big fans that would be like spraying water the whole time, or at least mist. I haven't seen a single one of those like pre or post commercial break pictures yet. So do those things still exist, do you think?
They do. You know what I have not seen, and maybe I might be wrong, is the thermometer before a game.
Oh my God, I missed the thermometer.
The thermometer 110. For some, it's just like it's like, why are we playing football in this weather?
Do you remember? I think there was a report. I think it might have been this year about. I think this might have been why they get rid of it, is because they were like doctoring the thermometer, whether it was like really cold, they'd like dunk it in water or something, or when it's like really hot, they just stick it out in the sun or something like that. Like there was some thermometer
shenanigans,
yeah, going on. But back to the Dolphins. Let's go to Adam Gase, who had a pretty interesting press conference today. He went on and on and on about someone asked him if this Ryan Tannehill injury can be compared to Andrew Luck at all, in terms of surgery, what's really going on, does anyone know what's going on? And he says, we aren't looking at surgery. Tannehill could throw tomorrow if he had to. And he also added that they aren't looking at any like rest plan to like sit him a couple days, kind of like they do with Frank Gore. And I just don't. What's going on here? Do you have any idea?
No, I don't think they know, because you take them for their word that it's like a week to week thing. My fear is that it just drags on, and then out of nowhere he's on IR. Because I'm prepared for that, where like it just comes out of like a Tuesday. Ryan Tannehill on injury reserve for shoulder.
And it's going to be after, like we mentioned before, when Brock Osweiler turns into a pumpkin. When Brock Osweiler has his worst game, that's when Tannehill gets put on IR.
And so, yeah, like, it's like this, and this is what I find like the season, like, kind of, it's weird because you could see them playing well, mm-hmm. and you hope it's sustainable, but at the end of the day, if Tannehill can't play for a long period of time, then you're stuck with Brock Osweiler for the remainder of the year. And they've already kind of done enough damage to not get the first pick.
Right. Yeah, no. The top 3 is out of the question. They're in the hunt. They are 100% in the hunt. They aren't finishing with less than 6 wins. And think about it. For them, they'd have to go, 2-8 the rest of the way?
They'd have to lose to Nathan Peterman.
Yep, twice. Probably twice. If
twice, that was, and Sam Darnold at home.
This team's gonna finish like 9-7, 8-8. But the cool, I'm excited about Brock Osweiler. I'm not gonna lie, it's just something different, something new. I like the way he acts on the sideline. Tannehill, he has good huddle etiquette. He has good huddle etiquette. He has good sideline etiquette. He's not giving us the finger guns of Tannehill and the thumbs up, which are fun when you're winning, but
and the dumb faces.
He's Joe Philbin. He has too much Joe Philbin in him. He's turned into, I've mentioned it before, he is like a Jeff Fisher where there's no, I don't really see like the passion and if he comes back, cool, I'll root for him, whatever. But the Brock Osweiler has been a great story. As a journalist, I pulled him the as a journalist card. It's really fun to watch and hear him, talk to Kenyon Drake on the sideline, say, it's fine, Parkey's going to miss this, we're going to need you. I don't know, I think the Tannehill experiment's I think this is the last year, and the IR thing, that's a good point, because say Osweiler goes, say they win the next 3. So when you look at that schedule, there really isn't a lot of, scary teams on the horizon.
It's Green Bay and Minnesota and New England for the remainder of the year.
Exactly. And so
maybe Indy because it's a home game in Indianapolis and they all turn into pumpkins on the road.
But it's a dome. Dome games.
Oh, they play the Jaguars. They do play the Jaguars.
But when I look at that schedule, and I've been seeing this, that everyone's on the extreme other side, is people are already saying this might be Tannehill's last game as a Dolphin. They're already looking at draft picks, and that's kind of weird to me. But with that going on, I wonder if Osweiler goes say he wins 3 of the next 5 or better. If he doesn't just become the guy for the rest of the season, and the Dolphins try to move on from Tannehill.
That'll take some onions to just move on from Tannehill in the middle of the season. I think I don't see them doing that. I see them trying to give Tannehill, to give him every opportunity to start. And then if it just doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But,
say he's not ready for the next 2 weeks. So Osweiler starts 3 games and the Dolphins win all 3. You still think that Tannehill can just walk right in and be the starter?
If he does, the Dolphins facility will probably be burned down because we all know how South Florida loves their backup quarterbacks when they play well. Tannehill has always gotten ripped, and they've always loved the backup quarterback.
That's not what I asked. Do you still think Tannehill deserves a shot if Osweiler goes 3-0?
Yes, I do.
You're a madman. You're a madman.
I think you give him the start, and the minute he sucks, you just yank him, and that's it, and that's over with. That's what I think. I think you would start Tannehill, and the minute he plays bad, just yank it and just rip the Band-Aid off that way.
Fair.
That's it. Just give him the chance because he was the starter. And obviously, it depends how Brock Osweiler is playing.
Right.
If he's playing like he did against Chicago, then with 300 some passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and obviously a pick or 2. You would start Tannehill, but the minute he's playing bad and the minute he's just making the same dumb decisions, just yank him and don't look back now.
Oh, because so you do the short leash.
Oh my God, the shortest leash possible. Shortest leash possible, man.
All right,
those dog leashes where you can lock it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He would just have the metal part sticking out of the plastic part. There wouldn't actually be a leash. It would just be the clip that you put on the dog collar.
He'd be just stuck by your side. Yes.
Yeah,
you're right though. You're right. That's fair. I could agree with that. And Topher, with that, let's go into an interview. And now we are joined by a very, very special guest, Steve Palazzolo of Pro Football Focus. And Steve, I did a lot of research on you. I read your Twitter bio. So how'd you go from, a minor league pitcher where there's so many things going on in your life and decide to turn to not only football, but no, I don't mean this in a bad way whatsoever, but the nerdy side of it, the film, the analytics, all that kind of stuff?
No, it's a good question. And the Twitter bio, yeah, it certainly tells all. Former minor league pitcher. So first off, I lucked into the transition, played in the minors for 8 years, bounced around independent ball and 3 different major league organizations. But, there was a point in my baseball career where I was so focused on baseball that I almost needed to needed a hobby a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And football was always kind of my hobby and my passion. So toward the end of my career, just to kind of take my mind off of the grind that was playing baseball, I did more on the film side in football just as a hobby, just to study the game and everything. And then when the opportunity, I was a fan of PFF for 2 years before I even joined. I was using it and one of the first people to maybe discover it on the internet back in probably 2009. And by 2011, career was winding down a little bit, and I reached out and said, hey, do you guys need help in part-time fashion, whatever it might be? They did. I did a practice game where we just collected who lines up, where everybody lines up on the field for every single play. So it's still the very base foundation of what we do over at PFF. We have now about 500 guys who are trained up in this process. At the time, they only had about 15. And I did it. I did it pretty well. Did it part-time for 2011. And that happened to be the last year I played baseball. Didn't have a job playing baseball in 2012, and spun that into a full-time job with PFF as they were trying to expand. So I was the 5th full-time employee at PFF at the time as we were trying to grow.
I think that's interesting because I tried to do it and clearly failed the just chart where everyone plays, because it is intense. There's a lot going on. What's different because I'm sure you put in a boatload of time with PFF. It's extremely detailed. What's the difference in, you said you were kind of getting sick. Well, not necessarily sick, but you needed a hobby like baseball. What's the difference from dedicating so much time to baseball compared to football?
Yeah, I mean, look, when I was playing baseball, I was always into stats and numbers, probably way more than any player should. I mean, at the time I was, I had a feel for analytics. I remember there was a point in the AAA clubhouse where the first time I ever saw the WAR stat on SportsCenter or something, and somebody said, "What's WAR?" And I basically looked at all my teammates. I said, "That's wins above us, essentially. That's how many wins is this guy generating over the replacement talent sitting here in AAA." So I knew that stuff. So I was into that, and I've always been into numbers, and PFF fascinated me because I would go to the site and I would see two lines. I remember specifically it was the Patriots grading, and they had Gerard Mayo with like 14 tackles and Brandon Spikes with 3 tackles, and Spikes with 3 tackles had a higher PFF grade. And I'm like, how does that doesn't make any sense. That's counterintuitive. And it was because they're truly grading every single play, and they're saying, man, Spikes blows up fullbacks and he opens the door for Mayo to get all these tackles. So I was just always intrigued by better ways of looking at sport, whether it was baseball, whether it was football, didn't matter, So always interest me. And again, toward the end of my baseball career, I needed, as a player, you don't want to focus too much on that stuff. So that was like my escape was focusing on the football aspect of things, and luckily ended up spinning that into a career somehow.
That's your story is how I kind of got into PFF as well. I did it for fantasy purposes. It was strictly, I was in IDP leagues and I was looking at snap counts of linebackers.
Yep. There you go.
Because I needed to know who were the 3-down linebackers and what players were on the field most of the time. And actually auditioned for PFF. I think the audition was basically watch the Cardinals Steelers Super Bowl and write down where everybody aligned
exactly.
up. And I'm talking like everybody, offensive linemen. It was like watch I think it was like the final drive of the game.
Yeah.
And it was just write down everything that takes place on this game. And you had to watch each play like 4 or 5 times because there's so much going on that like you can't tell who a player is. So you got to rewatch it just to double check because this is stats right here. You can't mess with the stats.
And you have to get it to over 99% accuracy just to keep up with everyone around you as far as the standard accuracy level.
But what do you think is something that PFF struggles at measuring? Because I'm sure you get this every single week. Why is my favorite player not being ranked properly? It was always for the Dolphins. Like Tannehill was always ranked high, and we just never understood it.
Yeah, I mean, well, I can discuss the old Tannehill grading quite a bit for a while because I remember back in maybe 2014 or so, I was good old Joe Philbin days. Yeah, I mean, I was doing the rounds at all Miami radio and everything, explaining why do we love Ryan Tannehill, and I'm like, it was week 2, and it was almost like saying,
yes, I remember this.
It was like, why do you think this hitter is a 5? So it'd be like questioning baseball stats 2 weeks into the season and saying, why do you think this hitter is a 450 hitter stats? And it's like, we don't. He's a 450 hitter in 2 weeks. Like it's going to go down. It's just what it is. Or everyone around him's, bad so far. So what do we not measure well? I mean, I'm biased. I think we do everything extremely well now. But no, really, I think the further away you get from the ball, there are some questions. I think safety play is always difficult. Linebacker play can be difficult at times. I think everything that we do over time is good. And so it's all about, I think it's the small sample sizes. So anytime you get small sample sizes, I don't think we're wrong necessarily. I just think it's hard to convey sometimes that it's a small sample size. It goes back to that Tannehill thing. And then I just think safety play in general, if there's a position that's weaker than others, just because there's fewer action plays and it's just a safer position, so to speak, as far as being able to avoid the action and kind of hide a little bit, unlike, a defensive tackle or an offensive lineman or obviously the quarterback. So I'd say if anything, it's safety play. But again, over time, if you have enough data and enough information, I think you can get a pretty good feel as far as evaluating positions.
I think that's really interesting how you mentioned kind of you see the trends. So how long does it kind of take to see trends with play calling? Because a lot of the time you're grading guys based on what's shown, not necessarily what a coach is calling. So how long does it take for one of you guys who's watching a game maybe 5 or 10 times to kind of pick up on what the coach is trying to do compared to maybe what the players are trying to do?
That's a good question. I think we are so focused on the player evaluation. I think the thing that we have is just a database where every single play in the NFL has about 180 data point. I think it's 180. It's a lot of data points attached to that play. So on every single play, did the team blitz? Did they not blitz? It's something as simple as that to which route did every single receiver run to how many, who blitzed and how often. So we have all these different data points. So it's more when you have this grade that says, okay, here's how well he played. Here's how well we graded him. But here's the situation that he was put in. So it's not so much as you're going through the game, you're noticing it. It's almost as you go back and it's like, hey, I felt like this guy struggled, against pressure. Oh, wait, here are the numbers that prove it. Or, hey, I didn't realize, Tom Brady was under an incredible amount of pressure. Like say the Denver game a couple of years ago in the AFC Championship. Brady was under an incredible amount of pressure. You could feel it. It was against Denver. It was when Denver won to the Super Bowl. And then you go back and look at the data, and they only blitzed about 3 times the entire game. And it was like, wow, he was under that much pressure, and they didn't even blitz. So it's almost like the database gives you all of the context for what the grade is. And I think that's the best way to explain what those tendencies and what those things look like to help explain what the grade says.
So can you explain basically how the Dolphins' defensive line has gotten better while losing Sue? Because that's the kind of thing that they've been knocked for the entire offseason is losing Sue, losing Landry. And now, it looks like the moves they've made, have worked out. How has losing Sue gotten better for the Dolphins?
I don't have a great answer for it other than you've got, you have a guy like Vincent Taylor stepping up and playing some pretty good football. It's funny because he graded extremely well for us in college. And, even on our draft board, I think we kind of neglected him a little bit for whatever reason, and he's grading extremely well. I know William Hayes is gone and hurt, but he was playing well early on. And you got a little rejuvenated Robert Quinn and Cameron Wake just, continues to go. So I really think when you look at, my analysis of the Dolphins coming into the season was, I hated the way the roster looked. But if Robert Quinn, it was a bunch of ifs, right? If Robert Quinn gets back and if Vincent Taylor emerges and if Devon Godchaux, improves.
It's the worst game.
Yeah, but there was a lot of these ifs have hit on the defensive line so far, So I think that's just where you are. It's not a fun game. It's tough to sustain, which is why I'm not a terribly, confident believer in, the Dolphins and their record at the moment. But they have gotten better than expected performance up front. That's for sure.
Kind of just sit on Robert Quinn for a second. We joke about this all the time. We say, the cliche of because everyone when a team signs players and it's your favorite team, you look for every excuse to why they're going to come here and be better. Robert Quinn played in a 3-4 last year, and now he's back to a 4-3 this year, and we've waved the scheme fit flag over and over. How have you seen anything like that where players have such a huge difference, maybe in such a slight tweak in type of defense they play in or where they maybe line up on the field?
Yeah, I think with pass rushers, you usually don't. I don't normally think that there's a big difference between a stand-up rush backer these days and put your hand on the ground. There's a few guys where it does seem to work, and with Quinn, I do think it works a little bit here. And the improvement that he's shown. There are certain schemes where like Patrick Peterson this year has been. I don't know if he's necessarily been better, but he's grading better because he's not necessarily put into as many challenging situations because he's playing zone. And in zone's a different skill set, but you just have to you're just getting attacked a little bit differently. So if you're a zone player, you just have to be a little bit better tackler, keep the ball in front of you. And if you're good at that, you can see your performance improve. And so you can kind of see the adjustment between, say, a zone scheme or a man scheme. There's various examples like that. And, the way where safeties are used, if you're a box safety versus a too high safety, you can see some of those adjustments where a guy's skill set's used slightly better.
We're speaking with Steve Palazzolo of Pro Football Focus. How do you feel about the Miami's offensive line, even with all these flags? Because it seems like you don't know, like when Brock Osler was playing last week, I had a feeling that his arm was going to get ripped off because he was going against the Bears, and nothing. And next thing you know, the offensive line's flawless. And does having Laramie Tunsil and Juwan James make the offensive line that much better, even with all these flags that those two get?
Yeah, I mean, I think they've been better, and I think the best way to look at that, if you just look at the PFF grades, I'm seeing 4 penalties for each guy. However, the pass blocking grade's good for both guys, so it's baked into our grading. If you're picking up holding penalties and pass protection, it gets baked into the grading, or false starts will go to different places, but they're not allowing a ton of pressure, and the grade's high, and that kind of handles the penalty grades there. So they're both playing pretty well. I'd say with the Bears, it helps having a banged up Khalil Mack. He might not even play this week. That's certainly a factor. The Bears, you talk about one player really, really changing that defense. That's Mack. And if he's banged up, they're not a great pass rushing team without him. So that certainly helps. But overall, again, it was this offensive line where it's like, if Tunsil takes a big step forward, if this happens, if that happens, and a lot of those ifs, they've been good so far this season. Even Josh Sitton was the one guy I was going to say, really helps improve them, and he's only played one game, obviously. So, it is impressive that they've been able to piece that together this season.
Kind of stick on guard play for a second. How much value do you see in maybe signing a top tier guard compared to the Dolphins have been doing decently well with the backups? Because we look at the Patriots every year. I remember a couple of years ago they just had an undrafted rookie at center, a couple rookie guards, and looked perfectly fine. When you're grading a position like guard, do you really see that as a position a team needs a top tier talent to necessarily be good?
I don't think they do. I mean, I really think schematically, it changes schematically, and it changes based off the quarterback. And normally, if you have a Ryan Tannehill back in the pocket who's going to, he always holds the ball a tick longer than you'd like him to. Then you need your guards to be a little bit better. Of course, Tom Brady could mask the offensive line. Drew Brees, that Peyton Manning back in the day could mask the offensive line a little bit more. I do think guard is one of the least valuable positions on the offense. My whole thing with offensive line play, I always use the term creep back toward average. When you're a bad offensive line, just get a little bit closer to average. If you at least have that mediocre mid-tier offensive line, you can survive. And when it's just not having a disaster up front. And I feel like that's what the Dolphins have done this year. It's just gotten a little bit closer to the middle of the pack after years sitting near the bottom. And there's a lot of benefit in that, as long as you're not disastrous like the Vikings are this year, and the Texans and the Cardinals and some of these other teams. Being in the middle of the pack is not a bad place to be. And what I would consider average football players from an NFL perspective are extremely valuable.
Right.
How do you feel Minkah Fitzpatrick has been playing this year? I mean, you guys graded him really well, and 84 overall grade coming into the season. Basically, I guess that's his draft grade. But how do you feel he's been playing this year? Because he's kind of been all over the place. He's been at slot. He's played some safety. Is this what you expected out of him?
I think the one thing I'm not expecting is the missed tackles. He has 9 missed tackles. I thought that was one of his strengths at Alabama. But I think take out the missed tackles. Overall, he's been pretty good. You've seen him make a few plays on the ball, interception against Brady, 3 pass breakups. Also had the penalties, saw that on Sunday, has 3 on the year. So ultimately that's a slightly, average to above average grade for us. It's 65, which I think, given the challenging role that he's been put in, that's pretty solid. Our big thing coming out, we just did this research within the last year that, to find, the slot is one of the most valuable positions on the defense, covering the slot, especially in today's NFL. And it's really tough to find slot cornerbacks unless you actually have a sample size of a guy doing that. And when you see Minkah Fitzpatrick did that in college, the narrative on him was, can he move outside? Can he handle big receivers? And we were saying, hold up, actually keep him in the slot. He's shown that he can do it. And that's a huge, valuable commodity in today's NFL. So I'm glad that the Dolphins do that. Yeah, it really is. And,
They did it with McCain. They paid Bobby McCain. They paid him, and now he's on the outside because he's good on the outside, and you could put Minkah right on the inside.
That was McCain's interception against Brady a couple weeks back too, right? That was
both.
I know they both had one, but so I know Minkah's, but McCain's was one of the best interceptions I think I've seen.
I agree.
Just passed off the route and spun back. That was incredible. I don't know how he did it. We were watching that in the office over and over, trying to say, was this just film study? Because it was almost one of those I'm a Brady apologist in general, but we didn't want to blame Brady because he actually had the right read on that, because McCain would normally be running with the slot the entire time, and he just knew it was coming. It was really a great play. The two of those guys combined and what they've been able to do, both really good. And so overall, Minkah's been very good. I do expect him to tackle a little bit better though. Nine's a lot of misses at this point.
Yeah, when we saw that Bobby McCain interception, we thought, this would be the year, as we do every single year, that this is the end of Brady. The Dolphins figured him out, but we won't talk about the rest of that game. But this weekend, Lions are 0-2 on the road. They're coming to Miami. Can you kind of give me one matchup you're really excited to dive into and examine, and then kind of give me just a game prediction? I know PFF doesn't do that too much, but who do you think is coming up on top, and do you have a guesstimation of a final score?
Yeah, so with Detroit, I think the thing here with Osweiler playing, Detroit plays as much man coverage as anybody in the NFL. It's actually Patriots number 1, Lions number 2, so same system essentially. So that's a challenge for Osweiler. To me, that's the big one. You have Albert Wilson, who's been incredible after the catch, and I think the Dolphins have done a really nice job of creating some mismatches, getting Jakeem Grant involved, and they need all of those guys to be able to beat their one-on-one matchups, whether it's Wilson, whether it's Amendola. They need guys to win. Kenny Stills. So to me, that's the matchup. They need to be able to create separation, create some bigger windows for Osweiler. I think that's going to be the big matchup. I think I got to see what I did for an official pick on this thing. Hold on. I just did a pod on it earlier today. I got to see what my official pick is, because I honestly take about 30 seconds on my picks every week.
Mm-hmm.
You're like us. We try to sound smart.
I took Detroit, unfortunately, and I think it was because of the lack of faith in Brock going up against man coverage. But look, Rex Ryan said something the other day that I thought was fascinating, that Miami has one of the best, if not the best, home field advantages.
The weather.
I think it is a factor. I think you saw that last week. You've seen it over the years when New England goes down there. I think there is something to that. So maybe that is something working in their favor against Detroit. So maybe I could change my prediction for the pod only. We'll say Dolphins 23-20 over the Lions. How about that?
Perfect. Now you got all your bases covered. Steve,
yes.
Final question.
All the way. I love it.
We'll make it really easy on you. ProFootballFocus.com. Is there anything you're working on you would like to plug at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, just all the products, all these numbers and grades that I'm pulling out, it's all part of our PFF Elite package. So we've got premium stats, which is all the grades, all the stats. And then when you sign up for Elite, you also get Green Line, which is our actual picks. So my picks are just like my intuition and my guessing, but we actually have data scientists and guys who are really smart, who understand the PFF data, and have started to spin that into a picks product that we call Green Line. So picking games against the spread, and they had fantastic results last year. And when you sign up for Elite, you get Green Line and you get the premium stats and all the grades and stats that I've been pushing on here. So I think that's the best thing we offer, PFF Elite.
Steve Palazzolo, Pro Football Focus, thank you so much for joining us.
You got it. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you, Steve.
So Topher, to wrap up the show, the Dolphins 4-2, trying to get a little winning streak going here, move to 5-2 against the Lions, who are coming off their bye. The Lions are 0-2 on the road. They're like the Dolphins. They need that little bit of home cooking. Give me a prediction for them for this weekend's game.
I'm going to go with the Dolphins win in the upper 20s. So basically like 28-26. The Dolphins, as well as they play at home, they do give up a lot of points, and they aren't afraid to get caught up in a shootout. They did it with Chicago. Granted, they had to come from behind, but I think they'll win, and I think the game will be over 50 points total.
I like it. I think it might. When I look at the Lions, they're always just such an awkward team. Like they always look so like they should be so much better than they really are. And for that reason, I'm gonna roll with you here. I'm gonna say maybe like a 31-20 though. I could even see the Lions, getting up early, but then the Dolphins kind of clamping down as
that's gonna happen.
The Heat's gonna play a role, and so we're both gonna go with the Dolphins winning.
It's the process. I could totally see Detroit being up 10-0 in the first quarter.
Oh, yeah. The one thing, real quick, that I think we could both agree we liked about Osweiler is they actually came out of the gate. I think they scored in the first quarter, which is mind-blowing as a Dolphins fan. They're still yet to score on their first drive. They almost did, an Albert Wilson drop. But we ain't hating because Albert Wilson, the AFC
Fast Albert.
Player of the Week. Topher, Spotify, iTunes, Podbean. Miami Dolphins in the Hunt on Twitter, MIA in the Hunt, Cochran 108, J Mendel 94. Fins up.